Oh, sorry, I thought you were rummaging through trash, Emma said with a triumphant smile, oblivious to the fatal mistake she had just made. My name is Sally. I'm 32 years old and work as a seamstress at a TV and film studio, repairing and altering costumes. The outfits I handle range from extravagant period pieces to everyday clothes for modern shows. My job involves adjusting designs to match the era, tailoring them to fit the actors, and mending any damage caused during filming. Although my primary role is to fix costumes, my true passion lies in sewing. I even create garments from scratch, a skill I learned from my mother at a young age. This job feels like my calling. The hours are irregular, and the demands can be tough, but I love my work and hope to stay in this field forever. It was at the studio that I met my husband, Joe. He worked as a caretaker for the actors. We're 3 years apart, and as we saw each other every day, our relationship naturally grew. 2 years after meeting, amidst our busy schedules, we eventually got married. We started our new life together, but just as it began, my mother suddenly fell ill and passed away, forcing us to postpone our wedding. Initially, we had planned a simple ceremony at a local church with just our families, but with the delay, we decided to save up for a proper wedding and honeymoon. Given our erratic work hours, we thought it would be wasteful to rent a house just to sleep in, so we moved in with Joe's mother, Emma, at his family home. Both Joe and I had lost our fathers early in life, and Joe worried about his mother being alone. I wanted to get along with Emma, but in hindsight, that was the beginning of a nightmare. Emma saw me not as her son's wife but as an intruder who had taken him away from her. As soon as we moved in, the harassment began. Sally, what's this? It's filthy here, there, and everywhere. What kind of upbringing did you have? Your parents must have been something else. I tried to keep up with the cleaning, even as my hands cracked and bled from the effort. The demands for perfection in household chores were relentless. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, if anything was even slightly off, no matter how exhausted I was, she would make me redo it without a care. The more tired I became, the worse her harassment got. No matter how perfectly I did something, she always found a flaw. I remember spending entire nights scrubbing the sink, as nothing I did ever seemed to please her. Emma ordered me to handle all the household chores, struggling to balance work and chores. I eventually arranged to work from home, but this only increased Emma's demands. Day in and day out, I felt like Cinderella, endlessly toiling away. Is the laundry done? The curtain upstairs is torn. Fix it. You're good at sewing, aren't you? Emma, I'm sorry, I have urgent work. Can't the curtain wait until the weekend? What are you talking about? If it's left like that, who knows what the neighbors will say? Fix it now. I found myself doing housework while trying to work, or rather, working while trying to keep up with housework. Many nights I had to stay up because the chores never ended. Emma seemed to take pleasure in watching me grow more and more exhausted. She was a perfect sadist, finding joy in torturing me with her demands, especially when Joe wasn't around. Our relationship became one of a master and a servant. I handled all the chores, driven by pride and unable to confide in Joe easily. I tried my best to fulfill my role, but the mental strain of enduring her harassment was far more taxing than the physical labor. Occasionally, Emma would invite the neighbors over for lunch, and those gatherings were pure torment. Emma became even more critical in front of them. From their conversations, I could hear them badmouthing me. Honestly, she's such a terrible daughter-in-law. I have to teach her every single day. My son might be blind to it, but I'm not fooled. She's so unlikable and completely lacking in common sense. The neighbors would laugh in agreement, and I couldn't help but think, who's really the one lacking common sense? The housework might end eventually, but their cruel words lingered, weighing heavily on my heart. I felt like I was reaching my breaking point every day. If things kept going like this, I worried I might lose my mind. But that wasn't the only issue. Joe had an older sister, Sarah, who was 38. She lived with her boyfriend in a nearby town. If I had to describe Sarah in one word, it would be stingy. She'd come over for lunch almost every day, likely just to save money. The worst part was her unannounced visits. Since I never knew when she'd show up, I couldn't prepare a portion for her. She would casually eat my food and then leave. Everything she saw as hers, including anything at her parents' house. She'd just take whatever she wanted. Perfect. I was just running out of Kleenex. I'll take these. But Sarah, I just bought those for Emma. Then she'd give me a glare. What are you talking about? You're home all the time, aren't you? Just go buy more. Like mother, like daughter. It was a wonder Joe turned out as well as he did. The biggest problem was when she would take ingredients meant for dinner without asking. Every time, I had to stop what I was doing to go shopping again. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. Sarah, could you please let me know before you take something? Apparently, she complained to Emma about it. Did you tell Sarah not to come over anymore? What? No, I didn't say that. So you're saying Sarah's lying? Caught between Sarah's lies and Emma's cruelty, I was overwhelmed. Dealing with Emma alone was hell, but adding Sarah to the mix made the mental strain unbearable. One day, as I passed by the room where they were talking, I overheard them speaking loudly enough for me to hear. It's like having a free maid. How nice. I'm jealous. Send her to my house too. A maid? Am I not a daughter-in-law? I had felt like a maid, but hearing it said out loud was unbearable. Something inside me snapped. That night, I finally poured out my feelings to Joe. I can't do this anymore. I've been patient, but I can't live with Emma any longer. Please, I want to live somewhere else. After a moment of silence, Joe replied, Okay, we've saved enough money. Let's move out soon. Really? I'll start looking for a place right away. Tears of relief streamed down my face. Unbeknownst to us, Emma was standing just outside our room. Little did we know, this would lead to her bizarre behavior later on. From that day on, the oppressive days suddenly began to feel brighter. I had one dream, to wear a wedding dress I made myself for our wedding. After all, sewing was my profession. Filled with new motivation after talking with Joe, I immediately ordered a large amount of fabric online. I decided to focus on making the dress as my new purpose. I began sewing the dress in secret, away from Emma and Sarah. But one day, Sarah, who often dropped by unannounced, caught me. Wow, what's this dress? It's nice to have your own dress. Hey, Sally, I'm getting married in 2 months. Make my dress too. Really? Yes. Renting one is just a waste of money. I want to keep the wedding costs low. So please. Typical Sarah, always looking to save money. I hesitated but agreed since she offered to cover the material costs. I started making Sarah's dress first since our wedding was still some time away. Sarah insisted, keep this a secret from Mom. She planned to tell Emma she was renting the dress to get financial support from her. Whatever she paid me for the materials, she was determined to recoup. Her level of stinginess was almost impressive. I even brought the situation up with Joe. His response was, you know how my sister is. Once she's made up her mind, she never backs down. I'm sorry, but it would really help if you could make the dress for her. Wanting to stay positive, I smiled and replied, leave it to me. I'll do my best. Since I was getting paid for the work, I felt motivated. I saw it as good practice for making my own dress without having to spend on materials. Plus, I had a small hope that this might help improve my relationship with Sarah. So, I threw myself into dressmaking, juggling it between housework and my regular job. Even Emma seemed to notice what I was up to. She would occasionally peek into my room. As Sarah's wedding day drew nearer, the dress was almost complete. Then, one day, Emma came into my room with an unusual smile. You're working hard again today. Aren't you tired? Yes, a little. Her sudden change in demeanor was unsettling. I'm going to make some coffee. Why don't you take a break? Really? That would be great. Thank you. No problem at all. I'll bring it to you in a bit. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. As Emma left, humming to herself, a strange unease settled over me. Emma offering to make coffee for me. That had never happened before. Could there be something more sinister behind it? Different thoughts raced through my mind, but worrying wouldn't do any good. I decided to focus on my work instead. I was just adding the final touches of lace. The dress was nearly finished. Despite it being Sarah's dress, I found myself putting real care into it. Suddenly, I caught the scent of coffee. Emma knocked on the door. Sally, may I come in? Oh, what is it? The next moment, I was shocked. Emma entered with a tray piled high with cups and saucers, all filled with coffee. Emma, wait. This wasn't just for two. It looked like she was preparing for a whole group. The tray was so heavy that her arms trembled. Instinctively, I moved to stop her from coming any further. Oops, Emma pretended to trip. The sound of cups shattering and coffee splashing everywhere filled the room. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. When I looked down, I saw that my yellow-colored dress was now stained with a giraffe-like pattern of coffee. Ah! I screamed involuntarily, and I didn't miss the brief smile that flickered across Emma's face. Oh no, I'm so sorry, it wasn't on purpose. Did you get burned? Wait, is that a dress? I thought you were going through trash. I was speechless, frozen by the shock of her actions. Then Emma feigned concern. Oh dear, you can't have your wedding like this, can you? My suspicions turned into certainty. Emma was trying to sabotage our wedding. She wanted to ruin our plans to move out after the wedding, but I couldn't afford to be angry now. I rushed to the bathroom with the stained dress, frantically trying to rinse the coffee off. I knew the stain would set if I didn't act quickly. Emma watched with a malicious grin. Need any help? No, I'm fine, I replied coldly, struggling to contain my anger and panic. Then someone appeared behind Emma. What's this? Are you bullying Sally again? It was Sarah. No, I just accidentally spilled coffee on her dress, Emma said, clearly enjoying herself. This was bad, but then the situation took an unexpected turn. What? Are you serious? That's my dress. Wait, what? Emma was suddenly speechless. Yours? Sarah, what do you mean? I can't believe this. I had her make my dress. What am I going to do? My wedding is in 2 weeks. Emma panicked like I'd never seen before. There's no way. As I listened to their ridiculous exchange, I continued to wash the dress I had spent months working on for Sarah. While scrubbing the fabric, I realized that Emma must have assumed the dress was for me. If she had known it was for Sarah, she would have had no reason to ruin it. Joe and I had planned to leave this dreadful family home after our wedding. To Emma, I was always the thief who had stolen her beloved son. She couldn't bear the thought of the woman she saw as nothing more than a maid taking him away. In her mind, sabotaging our wedding would keep him home. Such petty thoughts had driven her to these bizarre actions. Sarah was livid, directing her fury at Emma. How could you do this? Everything's ruined. I can't believe my own mother would destroy my wedding. I'm sorry, Sarah, please forgive me. I didn't know it was your dress. You don't think I did it on purpose, do you? Emma's true feelings finally slipped out. I pretended not to hear as I continued washing the dress, but I couldn't block out their voices. So, you thought it was Sally's dress and deliberately stained it? A man's voice echoed through the room. Everyone turned at once. Joe, when did you get here? Is that really what happened, Mom? Joe stood there, his expression a mix of disbelief and disappointment. I had been so focused on washing the dress and listening to their argument that I hadn't even noticed Joe's arrival. He had been silently observing the ugly confrontation between his mother and sister. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but tinged with sorrow. You saw Sally working tirelessly on that dress every night, and yet you deliberately ruined it. That's truly despicable. It's not like that, this is. Don't make excuses. Joe's sudden shout startled both Emma and Sarah. Emma, in particular, seemed shocked to hear her cherished son raise his voice at her. Joe continued, his tone now softer but filled with deep sadness. I'm so disappointed. Mom, Sally has been enduring your behavior all this time, hoping that one day you might change. She's been patient for my sake because you're my mother. Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened. I had sometimes seen Joe as indecisive, too submissive to his mother, but I realized now that I was wrong. Here stood a man determined to protect the woman he loved. Seeing Joe's unwavering stance in this situation made me fall in love with him all over again. He turned back to Emma. And now it's come to this. I can't just overlook it. Mom, Sally and I are leaving as soon as possible. I plan to stay here until the wedding for your sake, but I can't stay any longer. Today it was just a dress, but what if it's something worse next time? Sally could be in real danger, and I won't wait until it's too late. Danger? I would never put her in danger. How can you say that after ruining all of Sally's hard work so casually? Joe's anger was controlled but intense. This was his mother, after all, and instead of lashing out with harsh words, he quietly expressed his deep disappointment. His expression was something I had never seen before, an anger mixed with an indescribable sadness, as if he were denying everything about the woman who had always doted on him. Emma appeared deeply shaken. She was left speechless and in tears, an unusual sight for someone who usually spoke sharply. Sarah looked on in stunned silence, her gaze shifting between Joe and Emma. Soon after, Sarah cancelled her wedding. With the dates so close, she couldn't recover any of the costs. "It's not my fault. Emma paid for everything," Sarah claimed, so she wasn't financially affected. Emma seemed to finally realize the extent of her thoughtless actions, and the impact of Joe's scolding had left her emotionally drained. But the fallout extended beyond our home. Sarah's sudden cancellation enraged her fiancé and his family, leading to a breakup. Sarah continued to blame Emma for the breakdown of her relationship. After we moved out, Emma began reaching out to us, asking for money. It became clear that her reluctance for us to leave had financial motives. While living together, we had contributed to household expenses, but Emma had only her pension as income and had been relying on our support. Each time she called for money, Joe stood firm in refusing. "Mom, why don't you get a job? There are plenty of opportunities out there. We need to be independent, both you and us. Please, leave us alone." Emma pleaded not to be abandoned, but Joe remained resolute. His determination seemed to come from a deep sense of responsibility. Eventually, Emma found work as a janitor. Given her strict standards for cleanliness, the job suited her in a somewhat ironic way. Sarah, after ending her relationship and moving out, returned to live with Emma. She stopped working entirely, depending on Emma's part-time income and pension. The next time I saw her, she had gained a significant amount of weight. Joe and I settled into our new apartment and are now enjoying a life free from snide remarks and sarcasm. Our new life is a far cry from the dysfunction of the old family home. We've set a date for our wedding, opting for a small, intimate ceremony with just friends and colleagues, intentionally excluding Emma and Sarah. We wanted to avoid any potential disturbances, particularly given their current struggles. It was a necessary choice given the circumstances they created. I've begun working on a new wedding dress for the occasion, one that will be even more beautiful than the one ruined by coffee stains.